What up, family? A few requests before we start. First is that I know in the face of so much trauma in this past year, it's hard to even think about cross sectional solidarity. But at Colonial Outcast, we always encourage it, and that includes Patriots. What Palestine has taught us is that humanity and conscience is a universal language. It speaks to everybody across ideological lines. I understand that the majority of you who watch our episodes are mostly radical left. And what often comes with that is a disinclination to others who may not be. But I would encourage you to consider the approach that Fred Hampton took when he formed the Rainbow Coalition. He knew that for true revolution to be realized, it required an inclusive attitude when it comes to expanding our revolutionary body. And yes, that includes expanding it to patriots. Second request is, speaking of Fred Hampton, if you are interested in supporting the Black Panther Party and the Panther Party, send a message to the email listed in the description and ask how you can get more involved if you are serious about revolutionary organizing. Third request is this. When I interviewed Lieutenant Colonel Aguilar, I was not on my optimum game. My personal doctor and good friend, who was going through brain surgery at the time, was on my mind at the time of this interview, and I was worried that he was not going to make it. Alhamdulillah, he did make it, but my mind was foggy-headed, and it's very obvious in this interview if you watch it. So please forgive me for that. It's not always that we can be on our game to conduct effective interviews on podcasts, but we try our best. Also, Greg has a quick announcement he wanted to front load. And as always, love you, fam, and keep expanding this revolution.
Hey y'all, Greg here. Just letting you know that I will be taking, and have kind of had to be taking, an extended hiatus from the show for activism, amphibious activism reasons. So Mark's going to be completely in charge of the content for a while now. Hopefully I'll be back in November. And we appreciate all your help and contributions. Like, share, and subscribe. And I'll see you on the flip side. Well, no, I'll definitely see you on other platforms. Maybe actually, now that we're thinking about it, on Colonial Outcasts. Maybe we can make that work. But cheers, y'all, and have a great week.
What up, family? Welcome back, or welcome to Colonial Outcast for the first time if you haven't. Today, we're going to be talking about Patriots versus mercenaries and the enlightenment that former Lieutenant Colonel Anthony Aguilar, who's been on a lot of podcasts, a lot of news broadcasts lately, describing his realization of what's happening in Gaza, what the Palestinian people have been going through, and his transition. Anthony, I've gotten to know you a little bit over the course of the week. It's been great conversations, very powerful conversations between you and I. I wish I could have recorded what we said during those conversations. So we'll try our best to recreate it in this episode. It's good to finally meet you face to face, though. It was over the phone or over voice. So, you know,
it's a pleasure.
Hopefully, the audience can appreciate how handsome you are and how handsome I'm trying to be as we do this and as we get to know you. Well, first of all, I just want to know how you've been lately. I guess mentally, emotionally, physically. How I know this has been quite a transition for you, and being in the public sphere. You, from what I gathered in my conversations, you worked at the Home Depot lawn and garden before all this. I'm assuming to kind of, well, based on what you've said, to get some peace of mind after what you've been through in your career. You're retired Army Lieutenant Colonel, Green Berets for 25 years. You were hired as a security contractor for UG Solutions, which is what was the avenue of how you wound up at the GHF in Gaza. So I'm still waking up for a Friday. I took today off work so I can kind of, get my headspace cleared for this episode. But how have you been, man? Sorry, that was a long ramble, but what's going on with you?
I've been doing well. I mean, I know that in coming forward on the record that there's been a lot of smearing and backlash, which I anticipated entirely. That's the way things are, and I actually see that, in kind of doing my assessment of what I anticipated to be the pushback. I thought one of two outcomes. One, no one would care, and this my voice would fall flat, and it wouldn't make a difference. Or people would listen, and it would make a difference. And along with the good comes the bad. There are people that are ignorant, that will hate, that will espouse hate and vile comments, and that's just the reality of the world we live in. And the use of social media gives us a great platform to get our message across, but it also gives a great platform for vile, putrid individuals to sit behind a keyboard and speak about things without impunity because there's no responsibility, and they don't take responsibility, which it really doesn't impact me. It doesn't live in my head. So I don't let it bother me. What I do know is that whether anybody were to believe it or listen or not, my truth is coming from having been there, and I've seen it, and being a part of it, and the planning and the execution, and being in Gaza, and nothing can take that away in terms of the experience that I have and what I know to be as the truth, from my perspective. So to be honest, I've actually mentally and emotionally, I actually feel really good. I for a long time throughout my military career, I often felt that I was, um, trying to impress people that I didn't really care to impress, or be a part of a clique or a group that I necessarily didn't value being a part of, just to be, part of the cool crowd, so to speak. And when I retired from the military, I really was searching for purpose, but I also felt that I was searching for myself, to find myself in terms of the person that I was. And this opportunity, to speak the truth, is not an opportunity that I sought. I didn't go to Gaza looking to be a whistleblower or uncover what I thought would be what it is now. I went to Gaza truly believing of distributing and delivering food to people in need. And my opportunity to speak the truth, what I found is that my friends that are my true friends, that I know, that trust me, that love me, and I love them, and they're my friends, are still right here with me, and nothing has phased them at all. In fact, they're proud of me. For the people that want to smear me and say vile and hateful things about me, I've never even met them. I don't even know them. So
Yeah.
if they think they're having an impact on me, they're wasting their time. And in fact, if they want to waste their time on their platforms by trying to discredit me, more power to them. It only gives our voice more volume.
Yeah, and I think you'll come to realize that a lot of these comments are coming from the shadows, and by either trolls, paid trolls, or bots. And that's something that I think most people are not fully privy of. Like, they're not digesting the fact that 80% of the traffic online is bots, and these are paid. They're put up to the task by tech companies whose only job is to cause division and cause and throw attacks. And we get caught up in the comments thinking that they're real people, but they're mostly not. Either that, or they're just, some kid in their parents' basement. And now I could go into all of the details that you've already outlined in a lot of the interviews you've been in, which we'll cover like briefly. But I kind of want to focus on, rather than treating you like a subject being interviewed constantly about what you saw, I also want to like have the audience get to know you as a person and your general thoughts on a lot of different topics, because I think that humanizes you more. And I think that it's, we tend to, whenever a news, there's a news break and there's a witness, the cameras like to shine on that guy or that person or that girl, and treat them like they're some type of like just test subject of just analyzing them. Whereas I like to get to know people personally on all kinds of different subject matters, as a holistic approach, and but before I get into that, just summarizing. So you were at the GHF site from between May and June. You joined UG Solutions. You were working at. Can you go into from start to finish real quick? You were working at Lowe's, right?
And then you, after you got out of the military, which wasn't too long ago, you got out of the Special Forces branch just recently, which I didn't know. I thought you had been out for a while. So can you just give us a quick timeline of that?
Yeah, so I served for 25 years. I retired. My last day in the Army, so to speak, was early January, and then I had my terminal leave. That last bit of leave you can take up, and so I recently got out of the Army within just 5 months ago. When I retired, I was committed to a plan of doing nothing for the first year, like not taking on any contracting, not taking on any new job, not taking on really anything, just taking a year to just figure out what I wanted to do. I got bored, and I thought, I want to spend my mornings, because I have to wake up early because, kids, taking them to school and this and that. So I wanted to do something that was going to keep me occupied, but I didn't want to go back into working in the defense industry or some high stressful job, or, I wasn't not really concerned about necessarily being rich or making a lot of money. I'm happy, I'm content, I'm comfortable. So I wanted to do something that I would feel would to help me just continue to bring me peace. And I was at Lowe's early one morning, and one of the employees was out there, and this was really, really early, like right at opening. And one of the employees that was out there was watering all the plants, in the garden section. All the plants and stuff, they have to be watered. It's a job. And they just looked so happy. And I talked to him, and I was like, "Do you like doing this?" And they're like, "Yeah, I get to, I come in 2 hours before opening. I get to spend 2 hours on the clock by myself watering plants, and I just spend my time talking to people and sharing stories about life and just talking to people. It's really nice, and I only do part time, and nothing goes home with me in terms of work. I don't have work at home, and nothing here is stressful to where I go home and think about it. And it's just a great way to spend time and be active. And so I felt like that was something that I would make me happy as well. That would also keep me involved, active.
Yeah.
I didn't want to turn into a couch potato. So I was just doing that to keep myself occupied. And on May 13th, I received a call from UG Solutions. I did not know it was them. It was a 919 number. Usually, because of all the spam calls we get nowadays, if I don't recognize the number, I don't answer it, or it goes to spam. But it was a 919 number, which is North Carolina, and it's our area zip code. So I answered it. It was UG Solutions, and I had never heard of them before. I had no intent of being a contractor or a military contractor or a GS employee or anything of that nature. If I was going to do anything for a second career, it was probably going to be going to law school and being a public defender. That's what I kind of had envisioned on my vision board, was being a civil rights public defender. So when I got this call, I had not heard of UG Solutions. I had not heard of GHF, Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. I was not aware of an American company or a contract company that was going to replace what the UN had been doing. I was aware that the UN had been blocked by the Israeli government from going in, so I was aware of that. So when they called me and they explained to me what the mission was going to be, and they were specifically looking for recently retired or recently out of service with special operations background. So I fit the bill for that, so it made sense why they had called me. And I did my interview. I got a contract the next day, and by that Friday I was on a plane to Virginia, and by Sunday morning or Saturday I was on a flight to Israel, and I was in under UG Solutions as a subcontractor for security. I was in Gaza from the 24th of May. That's the first day I went in. And I stayed, I was in and out of Gaza every day, working at all 4 of the GHF distribution sites. until the 13th of June, and I resigned on the 13th.
Real quick, how's my audio?
Good.
Okay, is it? I think I was on the wrong. Hold on. I just realized that my settings were. Sorry. How's it now? It's good?
It's good. Yeah, it was good. Yeah, it's still good.
Okay. Okay. Sorry about that. Yeah. Let's, real quick, talking about the different GHF sites. For those who are not in the know, I'm going to share a screen real quick. A lot of people, it's hard for them to visualize.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know if you can see this. Can you see that pretty good? Okay, so
yep. Let's
scroll down. Okay, so on this screen, you'll see the I don't know how well you can see it, but you got the Rafah border, you got the Kareem, and you got the Nazarene corridor up north. Describe roughly where the different sites were at and how that plays into the inhumanity of where they were located, where they decided to place these GHF sites, distribution sites.
Yeah, so I am very visual, and I appreciate you putting up the image because it does help in terms of gaining understanding for the geography, which is important. I have a couple of maps that I use to kind of convey this to people, but this, if this is Gaza here, if y'all can see that.
Okay, you know what? Let me take my screen off. And we'll cut that so that okay, I'll see yours.
Yeah, so here you look at Gaza, here's the Mediterranean, here's the coastal road, here's Israel, here's Gaza. And you look at this from the excuse me, let me put it up the correct way for everybody. It was backwards from how I was holding it, but if you look at this, these are all the sites that existed throughout the enclave under the United Nations. Over 400 sites from the south to the west, to the north, to the east, 400 sites. Now what you see here on these black boxes, those are now the only 4 sites that remain. All of these sites are gone. There are only 4 that were built under the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. And this one in the north is closed now because of Operation Gideon's Chariots 2, which started 24 hours ago, the clearing of Gaza City. So now there are only 3 sites, and all 3 sites are way down here in the south, and that matters. That's important. So why that matters is that if you look at here, again, right here are where those. So here's the entire enclave. Here's Israel, or excuse me. Here's the here's Israel up here, Mediterranean Sea. This is the border with Egypt. So all 3 of these sites are down here now in this very far corner along the coastline and the border with Egypt. So this is the Netzarim corridor. Nobody north of the Netzarim corridor in Gaza can move south of the Netzarim, and no one south of the Netzarim can go north. Gaza City,
and as far as we know, there's no sufficient aid going into the north of the Netzarim corridor. Correct.
There's none.
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 Yep. So anybody there is trapped without food.
Anybody north of the Netzarim in this corridor or in this section here is completely isolated and cut off from any type of aid, water, food. They've been surviving on boiling rainwater and seawater that they can get, and eating what's remaining. And then over the last couple days, the airdrops. So if you've seen on the news, the airdrops that have been done are being airdropped. So when you see the aircraft and they're flying over the Mediterranean and you see the coastline, that's right in here where that's right in here where they're dropping all that aid along the coastline into this portion here. So until those airdrops started a few days ago, that's the only aid that they've been given. They're completely isolated and blocked. They've nobody from here. But this is where I've said before in my comments that a day of reckoning is upon us. A day of reckoning is coming. That when the Israeli Defense Force goes into northern Gaza and people are fleeing to the south, and more of the world sees what's in here, it's going to bring the world to its knees. The starvation, the death, the annihilation, the dehumanization, the abject starvation, the famine. So just today, actually, just this morning, the United Nations has finally has declared a famine. So the level of starvation has risen to the level of a famine. That is very serious. So
they're a little late in the declaration, but yeah. But there's also no guarantee that they're going to document or allow any footage to go out as they move through. That's the other thing.
You're precisely correct. But what I think will be interesting about what we don't see will be what we do see. And the reason I say that is because that you can't hide the starvation and the death and the people that are going to be coming out of there, that are going to be moving south, and what their stories and their witnessing is, and what their level of starvation and deprivation and hunger and sickness and disease and all of those things. We will see it. They can only hide so much.
Absolutely.
And the world will see enough to where the world will demand answers, accountability, and access. The world will demand it. And what we will see, Israel cannot hide. It will bring the world to its knees. And that's why my assumption is that when it happens, Israel is looking for a bedfellow. Israel needs a scapegoat partner in this. And right now, that's the United States.
Yeah. And when I heard about the GHF, the fact that they were contracting U.S. veterans and U.S. personnel, the way I looked at it was, okay, why? And then there's no other conclusion other than the fact that they want U.S. personnel to get their hands dirty too with them. And that's what
there's a reason why GHF is completely manned and hired with U.S. citizens specifically. There's a reason for them.
Yeah. And when we talked, you and I met on Speak with D, her live on X, which, by the way, I'll put her link in this description. She is an amazing person who does excellent lives with excellent people, and I've been blessed to be on a few of her lives, and it's always been like family there. Very positive. She's very she keeps out all the riffraff from chiming in, and that's where I met you, of course. And the biggest thing that's been on my mind, besides the logistics, besides the reality that these distribution sites are nothing more, like you put it, than a way of causing using starvation as a form of ethnic cleansing and bringing them as bait to a certain geographical location. But my biggest curiosity is what I asked you on that live was the culture of these contractors that you witnessed. I'm sure it was a shock to you. And of course, we've all seen this video, which I'm going to play, which I believe you took.
His view is obscured by a large dirt mound. The contractor who took the video told AP that he saw other contractors shooting in the direction of Palestinians who had just collected their food and were departing.
Hey, God, you have tank posted on the northwest corner now. I brought a man and talked to him. There's the show first. But I told him to hold there. I don't want this to be too aggressive.
At that moment, bursts of gunfire erupt close by.
Yeah, so that video told me a lot that I needed to know. What kind of men they are sourcing for these sites. They shoot at Palestinians as they're running away, and you got this immature little kid going, "Hell yeah, boy, we got one." This told me a lot, just that one video. And I believe you took that, correct?
I did film that video, yes.
Yeah. So tell us what the culture was like amongst these individuals. Like, as we know, this is not indicative of U.S. personnel as a whole. These GHF sites have had a filtering effect, as you put it, where it's filtering out all the people who have a conscience and leaving behind the worst of the worst, the most immature, the most sadistic, and people who you would not let your kids go around, would you? So or allow your kids to be around. So can you describe the culture that you witnessed there? And I'm sure you saw two sides of the culture. You saw the people, the other personnel, the other contractors who were probably in shock like you. Maybe they didn't want to say anything. There's probably a spectrum of personalities that were there, but let's go into the personalities that you came in contact with at these sites.
Definitely a spectrum. I would not characterize all as a certain, but I know that there were many of the contractors. Again, as you said, I think that's an appropriate description of the filter, that the majority of people, not all, some are still there, but the majority of people with a conscience or that couldn't be a part of this have left, and those that want to be there and be a part of it have stayed because they enjoy an environment of impunity. It's almost like you would consider like if you an infection, if you will. The bacteria and the virus and everything just thrives in that infected tissue. And if you just put a Band-Aid over it and don't treat it with anything and only peek at it, sometimes it gets worse. It doesn't get better, because all the white blood cells are being eradicated, your immune system's breaking down, and that's what this is. The impunity for people that want to do evil and be a part of evil. This is an environment and a culture where they can thrive because there's so little oversight and rules. And one piece of it, just looking at the people that are on contract. So a large group, not just a couple, but a pretty large group of the individuals on contract under UG Solutions that are guards were recruited and are active members of the Infidels Motorcycle Club. So if you can go to the Infidels Motorcycle Club, their website, and you can go read exactly who they are, their mission statement and everything else. And they are veterans. You have to be a veteran to be part of it. You have to be not only a veteran of the military, but also a veteran of paramilitary contracting, Blackwater, UG Solutions, the like. But they proselytize in their mission that they are anti-jihad, and they call for the eradication of all Muslims. Yep. Every year to start Ramadan, the club has a nationwide pig roast to celebrate to recognize the beginning of Ramadan. These people are vile. They have views that they're crusaders, that they are God's chosen warriors, and that they're there to eradicate Muslims. And you can see from the behavior of some, as indicated in that video, that some of them take that pledge or that calling as their mission in Gaza. They're not there to feed people. They're there to kill people. And it happens.
It's almost as if they're like a time capsule from the Bush era of the Islamophobia, and they never moved on. They just stuck in that Islamophobic, post 9/11 Bush era state, and then just festered until, and this was their moment to finally live out their fantasies that they no doubt had during the post 9/11 era, and they just fostered it. They just fostered that culture. So no doubt it was a very sadistic environment that you witnessed. And like that guy whoever he was, who was, cheering it on like a little kid with a gun, there's probably a lot more like him, no doubt, in that. And I'm sure men like yourself left, leaving, like you said, the worst of the worst in that area. And you mentioned that the way that they located these sites was designed to create this, this dystopian, apocalyptic type of movie scene of groups of Palestinians who are starving to death, out in the desert, no doubt having to trample over each other, tripping over rocks, little kids, to get food. And you mentioned that the food was very scanty. You're talking about uncooked. What you mentioned, it was uncooked pasta, maybe some uncooked rice. not that many calories. So that's when you met Amir. And let's talk about Amir. My dad is going to be watching this episode, by the way, and I want him to see it. Can you describe that encounter with that boy, Amir?
So I've part of me coming forward and being on the record is to show that I'm not pro-Hamas. I'm not a propagandist. I don't have an agenda. I'm not someone that's sitting behind a keyboard that's espousing some views from a million miles away. I've been in war. I've been in a lot of war. And for anyone that celebrates war or thinks that the brutality of war is glorious, then I would say that there's either something wrong with them mentally, or they haven't really seen war. Because it changes the way you see things in terms of how you value human life and how you value not only your life, but you value the lives of the innocent.
Yeah.
And Amir encapsulated that innocence. This young boy, 10 years old, was on secure distribution site number 3. So if you look at this, like I said down here, here's site number 3, kind of in the southern portion of Khan Yunis. But you notice that this right here is the Marag corridor. There are no inhabitants and no one's living south of the Marag corridor. This is all militarized. This part of southern Rafah has been rubbled, destroyed to the ground. There's no signs of life here. The only thing that operates here is the Israeli military and these 3 sites. Why you would put sites in an area that is so far away from the people that need it is an indication of the intent behind these sites. So here's site number 3. So this young boy Amir came from the Khan Yunis camp. So from the Khan Yunis camp to get to site number 3, it looks like that's a short distance. You can't walk straight that distance. You have to follow the secure militarized route. So the military route, he has to go from Khan Yunis camp. He has to walk west all the way to the coastal corridor, then south all the way to the intersection of the Marag corridor where there's a holding area, kind of a holding staging area. And then once they're released, he has to walk all the way down the Marag corridor to then the road to site 3. So in just one way walk, 8 kilometers, maybe more.
Yeah.
That's the minimum, maybe more, one way. So you consider this boy has a 16 to 20 kilometer walk. He had no shoes. His pants held up by a piece of twine. God knows when the last time he ate or had a meal. So on secure distribution site number 3, the women and children, on all distribution sites, the women, children, the elderly, the vulnerable, they arrive after the massive crowd because it's a free-for-all. And they're typically slower and typically have to fight their way to the front. And by the time they get onto the site, there's nothing left.
Yeah.
Except scraps to pick up off the ground.
Yeah.
And
plus the meal that they receive, how many calories would you say that is? The meal that they pick up.
So I'll tell you a meal, and I've done that. This is not swag. This is not an estimate. This is not a guess. This is evidentiary fact from I'm hands-on, eyes on. So I'm gonna break that down for everybody. 1 box of GHF aid. I was trying to see if I had a picture of the box, but so this box, like a box like right here, like that size box.
Okay.
That box right there, according to GHF's information. I didn't make this up. I'm not saying this is their information. 1 box feeds a family of 5, 3 meals a day for 3.5 days. So if you do that math, 1 box then is 52.5 meals of raw ingredients. Remember, we're not giving them meals. They're not showing up to a site and getting a hot meal or a prepared meal. They're getting raw ingredients.
So
if you were to take everything, with no water.
Yeah, so,
So
they're
if
gonna
you're
have to go find their own water, figure out a way to cook it under the conditions that we already know are happening in Gaza, with bombs going off, with airstrikes, with
and then how do they, they hopefully they can find the material to heat up the water, to boil that water, because they're not getting potable water. It's either
Yeah.
rainwater, non-potable water, seawater. So they also have to have the means to then boil that water, which how are they doing that? There's no propane and there's no fuel left. So fire, yeah. But it's very austere and it's very inhumane when you think about, we're not just giving them a meal. We're giving them the ingredients to make a meal, and we're not giving them water nor the ability to actually make the meal that we're giving them. It's cruel. It's cruel. It's like giving someone a can of food and then not giving them a can opener. Like it's it's evil. So real quick to these boxes, one box has 52.5 meals. So if you open up one of those boxes and you take everything out of it, item by item, and you add up, okay, this has got this many calories, this has got this many calories, this has got this many calories, and you add all that up and you divide that by 52.5, it's 220 calories per meal. Because the other thing you have to consider in that it's post cooking, not pre-cook, post cooking. You can't eat those ingredients raw. So you have to look at and on these packages, they have two nutrition facts. Nutrition facts in its raw state, nutrition facts post-cooking. So you take the post-cooking caloric intake, add the whole darn thing up, you get 220 kilocalories per meal. So for 3 meals, that's 660 calories. That's half a Snickers bar. So when you look at the, but also again, we're not giving them any protein. There's no meats, there's no nuts, there's no protein-based plant products. It's all fast burn carbohydrate. All that does is serve to elevate your metabolism and then drop your metabolism. And we're not, is because this is the only food they have.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's per meal. So when you consider these, the women and the children and the elderly, or the vulnerable population, I would say, they're picking up scraps. They're picking up scraps of food. They're not picking up a meal or a box. They're picking up scraps.
Yeah.
So when you also consider the fact that this young boy, Amir, had to walk 8 kilometers to get there, he's burned more calories getting to the site than he'll get in 6 meals, in 2 days worth of food of what's in those boxes.
Yeah, that's what I was just about to. This is what I was thinking. The amount of calories it took to walk all that, and that's the cruelty behind it. It's almost like a game. It's almost like testing the ability of. It's kind of like that camp in Japan where they were testing that they did on the Chinese, experiments on the Chinese, where they were using very cruel measures to see how far the human body can go and how much their mind will push them to go out of starvation, for starvation, and see what mechanism within the humans will drive them to do that, and then taking some type of satisfaction out of that. That's been my assessment of these GHF sites from the beginning. And then so he picked up his meal. What did he pick up? What did Amir actually pick up? Did he pick up one of these boxes?
This is Amir. And you can see in it, this is as he's approaching us. In his hands there, he has part of a bag of rice that was discarded on the ground. He's got a little bag of like a spilling, they're falling out of the bottom of the bag here, of lentils. He's got some items. So the thing is, you also have to consider this young 10-year-old boy who has these raw ingredients that he found. How is he going to cook that? How is he going to make that? There's no parents with him. There was no adults. There was nobody with him. He was alone.
He had no bag either. He was just carrying that by hand. So he had
no bag, no box. He was carrying it in his hands.
And he had to take that and now go back home,
8
keeping
kilometers.
all of them in his arm, 8 kilometers. And then
no water.
But despite all that, and again, this is just how Palestinians are. He did something to show his gratitude.
So yeah, he walked 8 kilometers in the hot sun without shoes, by himself, alone, separated from his parents or his family, and while he was on that site was picking up scraps, and he didn't complain, and he wasn't angry, and he didn't protest, and he didn't ask for more, and he didn't or come up to threaten us in any way. He walked up to us very very friendly, very submissive. He walked up to us in a very submissive way, and he wanted to thank us. He reached out his hand. He kissed the hand of the contractor standing next to me, and then he beckoned. He walked over to me, and I reached my hand out to put my hand on his shoulder, and he kissed my hand. And to both times when he kissed his hand and my hand, he said "shukran," which is thank you.
Yeah.
And I placed my hand on his shoulder, and I could feel that it was just all skin and bone. And when I held my hand to his arm, it was just bone. There was no muscle or body to him. He was starving. And I want people to know that I've seen starvation before. I've seen people starving in Iraq, in Afghanistan, in southern Tajikistan, where people were cut off from a landslide and didn't eat for days. I've seen people that are starving. This boy was starving. His fingernails completely dried and cracked and just his finger because he was starving. The body breaking down. Yeah. His skin just dry and tight, clear indication of dehydration. God knows when's the last time he drank water. And he was thankful and he was grateful and he wanted to thank us. After he had thanked us, I had said, I was like, it's time to go home. It's time to go home. Because the IDF had called us on the radio and said, get everybody off the site. Get everybody off the site. Yeah. My experience, that usually means, that the IDF are going to start bringing in tanks and etc. So I was telling him, go home, go home, go home. So as the last group of people on the site were leaving the site, leaving through the exit gate, the larger crowd that had swept through there sooner, that had got there earlier, had already left the site. Now, what I was showing in the map that I shared there, that if you're here at site number 3, the entrance, you enter from north to south, and when you leave, you go from south to the north. So you're basically going back to whence you came. Yeah. So you have a lot of people that were still coming in that were stopped and told, nope, no more food, go away. So you have people coming off the Marag corridor that are coming to the site, while you have people that are leaving the site that are traveling on the Marag corridor back. So you have a large group of people without food and a large group of people that did get food, all meeting up on this road in one big chaotic mess of thousands of people.
Which no doubt is by design. It's to create
by design. It's absolutely by design.
To create conflict, to create a desperate situation where people see food and they want to feed their family, so they might fight over it. They might
to create desperation, chaos, confusion. Yeah. It's dehumanization. It's the playbook for dehumanization. 101. Yeah. So you have the large group leaving, part of the group coming in that were stopped. So they're coming down to the site. They can't go in, so they're backed up. And then you have the group that's leaving that are being forced west. So they're meeting up with the larger group that's stuck. They're all stuck. So naturally, if you're in this situation as a human being, and you're in this situation where you're crowded and you're trying to find a way out, you're like, oh, okay, well, I can go that way. Well, the IDF did not want the crowd to go east. They were forcing them all west. So the IDF was firing machine gun fire from the coaxial machine gun on the Merkava tank, fully automatic 7.62 machine gun, firing it at the intersection of where the exit from Site 3 and the Marag Corridor connect, firing at that intersection as a warning or as a way of communicating to keep people from moving east. And in doing that, there was this wall of machine gun fire. And as that last group, that slower group of children and women of which Amir was a part of, when they left and they were running off of the site because they were scared, the idea for shooting, not seeing this other group that was leaving the site because there's a large berm between site number 3 and the IDF position. There's a permanent IDF position there where they were firing from. They weren't just there. That's a permanent position. So as these women and children and elderly are running off the site, scared, limping, some of them can't run. They run into this wall of machine gun fire. And 76.2 millimeter, for anyone out there from military experience, that's the M240 Bravo machine gun.
That's the AK round, the AK-47 round,
or the same ammunition as the AK.
It's used in sniper rifles as well.
I mean, belt-fed ammunition of 7.62, when it hits you, it destroys the body. It is not what you see in the movies where a guy's got a small bullet wound and he's bleeding and this and that. It blows off body parts. Yeah. So consider that if you're a 10-year-old child who's been beaten down to skin and bone. And so as they're running, they run into this wall of gunfire and people drop to the ground, shot. People ducked and were crawling. The other Palestinians that were on the road were already ducked down into like this dune because they were hiding from the machine gun fire. And if anybody wants to see what that looks like, you can go to the BBC interview I did with Jeremy Bowen when he's showing the very first scene of that interview when he says, this may look like a combat zone, but it's not. It's a distribution site. And you see Palestinians lying in the dirt and machine gun fire just hitting into the ground around them, hitting into the crowd, hitting over their heads. That's that location. That's that site. That's the location that I'm describing right now. And
I'll play this clip real quick to give people an idea. They're shooting in between the crowds. You can see a crowd.
You'll see some that go into the crowd.
There's a gap on the ridge, on the top of the berm, and then you got those are close bullets hitting near the camera. No doubt, people are getting hit right there.
Yeah, so that spot right there, that location is the exact location that I'm describing where site number 3 intersects with the Morag corridor just west of the spot that I'm talking about where the machine gun fire, where Amir was killed. That's that spot. That machine gun fire you see coming in is 7.62 machine gun fire from the coaxial machine gun hitting into the crowd, hitting into the dirt. You can see the bullets hitting into the dirt, and then you can clearly hear it. The bullet, the whizzing of the bullet into the crowd. That's the spot I'm talking about. So as the last crowd was running, this crowd was forward on the road. That piece of dirt you see that's kind of open, that's the Morag. They're in the Morag corridor. That's what going west. And they're ducking on both sides of it because machine gun fire is coming in. So when Amir and this other group of people were running, they ran right into that wall of machine gun fire from the south, and it killed them. Amir laid there dead, didn't move, not getting up, and to this day, his mother or his stepmother nor his family, no one can find him. No one's identified his body. No one knows where he is. And what's really disturbing, and I invite everyone,
you don't have the ability to inform them. Even though you saw them, you don't have the ability to inform them because they're cut off. They're cut off from communication.
I mean, I don't even know where their family might have been. I don't know if he had family. I don't know if he. I learned through an interview with a woman who said that she was Amir, who saw the picture and said that she was Amir's stepmother, who said that the father had been killed in an airstrike and that they were separated from Amir that day going down to the site because of as they were coming to the site, there was shooting and the crowd, there was chaos in the crowd and they got separated from him, which on the site that day, there was no one there with him. So that makes sense in terms of what she was saying. But yeah, I wouldn't know. There'd be no way to, and something that's disturbing to me that I recently learned of, so on distribution sites, when security, UG Solutions would bring in more security for distribution on the site, that's when I was there. So when distribution was over, I left with the mobile element, the reinforcement element. I left with them. But the truck drivers, the guys that are driving the big trucks for aid, they're still there loading, either unloading the next load or loading to leave the site. Anybody can go look this up. It just hit last night on CBS. CBS live interview. If you look it up, CBS, GHF truck driver whistleblower, you'll hear from a person who he's anonymous, but he was one of the truck drivers. And I think in the interview he goes by Mike, but he's anonymous. But he describes that day. He describes that very day. And I've never met this person. I don't know this individual. We didn't get together and corroborate our stories. I've never met him. He was a truck driver. So he corroborates not only that story, but then afterwards discusses how they were ordered to, how they were told to. The truck drivers were told to load up the bodies on the back of these trucks and drive them off. And he even says in this interview that from seeing what he saw, that it's possible that Amir was amongst those piles of bodies.
Where was Amir hit? Do you know?
Torso, legs and torso.
So you saw a lot of damage done by those 7.62s.
I mean, I wasn't able to, so it was about maybe 600 meters, and people say, there's no way you can see 600 meters out. Really? We qualify in our weapon system in the military out to 300, 600, 800 meters. Like, what do you mean I can't see 600 meters? What are you talking about? Like, when people say that, I'm like, you're preposterous. What do you mean I can't? 600 meters? Like, anyone that's been in the military, you know that on your machine gun, you qualify, on your rifle, you qualify out to 300. And on the machine gun, you qualify out to 3, 6, and 8. So to say that someone can't see 600 meters, it's like, seriously, get real. You don't know what you're talking about. So seeing 600, where he was, I couldn't go out there. I couldn't walk out there and do, like a medical assessment. We couldn't leave the sites. But as the crowd was leaving, I saw them clearly leaving the site. I was there when they left the site, into this cover of machine gun fire. People that dropped people that dropped to the ground, not moving. People that were hit and crawling. People that weren't hit, that were picking up people that were hit and trying to get them out. And Amir, he had no family there with him. He gets hit. I watched as bullets hit him, and he drops to the ground. And
what were you going through? I mean, it's needless to say what you're going through, but still got to say, what were you going through when you came to that realization that it was Amir, the little boy that that you put your hand on his shoulder?
So when the Palestinians that were on the site had left the site, right as they were leaving, that machine gun fire that you see in here hadn't started at that particular, as they're leaving the gate, as they're exiting the gate. As they're and so I'm kind of I'm still back on the in the site. But as they're leaving and I hear the machine gun kick up, the IDF machine gun, I thought maybe we were being attacked. I thought maybe there was like something going on. So I ran up to the berm, the northern looking berm, and took cover to look. And that's how I saw all of this. So I was in shock. I was in absolute, because trying to figure out like what's going on, like where's the enemy? Who are they shooting at? And then looking at it, I was like, I don't think they're shooting. There was no return fire. So like they're not shooting at they're not shooting at an enemy. They're shooting at the Palestinians to get them to keep them west. And I was like, I was in shock. I was in horror. I was like, I audibly even said to myself, like, no, like, what are you doing?
Was this the first time that you saw this? So this was your first moment of seeing this behavior. You went in with a certain expectation when you arrived at these sites after you signed up. At some point, reality started to sit in of what this really was. Where on the timeline was that point? Was it this moment with Amir, or was it slightly before that? Was there
slightly, I would say it
close?
was slightly before that. This was only the second day we had done any distribution. The day before that, at Site 1, was an absolute nightmare. It was chaos. 30,000 people rushing the site at once. No way to maintain control. I thought in my mind, one of two things going into this before we even did distribution, that if I'm shooting my weapon, I'm in Israel, in Gaza, as a tourist. I'm not a belligerent in war. I'm not a combatant. I am a security guard. If I'm shooting my weapon, things have gone horribly, horribly, horribly wrong, and I am fighting for my life. And if that's the point, and if that's the case to where we're fighting for our lives every day, then we shouldn't be in there distributing aid. We should do it, find a different way to do it. So it was one of two things for me. Either I'm not going to shoot my weapon because there isn't a threat. If I am shooting my weapon because there is a threat, then things have gone really, really, really bad. And, I was kind of used to that, as a military officer, even as an infantry officer, as an infantry officer in a rifle platoon in combat, if you, the platoon leader, are shooting your rifle instead of on the radio or directing the battle, things have gotten really bad. you're in a bad situation. So I was used to that mindset, so it didn't bother me in terms of, like, I'm not there to kill. I'm not a combatant. I'm not fighting in this war. So when I saw this, it was very concerning to me that that we, UG Solutions, that we did not have an ROE or a standard operating procedure or rules of engagement or excuse me, a escalation of force operating procedure, that if that's what the IDF were doing, that we too soon would be doing that because of lack of any type of leadership and guidance. And sure enough, that is exactly what happened. The very next day, on the 29th of May, that's exactly how the contractors reacted. Why? Well, because the IDF did it.
So, and I talked to you a little bit about this over a week ago. There was a lot of fraternization, obviously, with these UG Solution guys, these mercenaries and IDF soldiers. And as we know, when you fraternize with, people like who serve in the IDF, like IDF soldiers, there's going to be a lot of sadistic contagion that takes place between that. A lot of, bandwagon effects, a lot of, peer pressure. So when did you start to see these clues set in, when you started to get to know these contractors who were with you? Like, where did you start to notice the culture of what the culture really was looking like? Discounting the ones that actually had issues with it, like yourself. The way these things tend to play out is you have like your bully alphas, who show off and they try to create a peer pressure amongst other guys. And then that coalesces into a sadistic mob mentality. Did you see these clues start to set in before you witnessed these horrific events at these aid sites?
Yes, it's almost again. So I've mentioned this before. I don't know if I've mentioned it now. I think I have mentioned it on this one. That a large percentage of the contractors, a large group, were Infidels Motorcycle Club members. So they were all club members. They all known each other. They're all part of the same culture, the same clique, the same organization. And
you can tell by the way that they talked about Palestinians.
Not only by the way that they talked about Palestinians, but they all of them had the Infidels Crusader tattoo, or an Infidels tattoo, or infidel. Like, it was very identifiable who the infidels were.
Right.
But also how they spoke.
You mentioned they called them the Horde And you
Yeah,
call them, they
the
call those
contractors,
zombies.
not just the UG Solutions contractors, but the Safe Reach Solutions contract guys, guys and gals, refer to them as the zombie horde, the the pieces of shit. Excuse my language. You know, calling them just dehumanizing, abhorrent names, not even seeing them as humans, and
Yep.
that's kind of like the start of this dehumanization, is where you, in terms of what you call people, what you know, the things you say and what you characterize them as. It's important, kind of like you know, how some refuse to call Palestinians Palestinians. You know, they call them Gazans, or territorial, territory persons. They don't. So what you call people and how you refer to people has an impact on how you see them. And if you are calling them things that are derogatory and dehumanizing, then soon too follows the dehumanization of the people you're referring to.
Kind of like in Somalia, Mogadishu, they would refer to the Somalians as the skinnies.
There you
Yeah.
go. That's a great. You know, and I hate to use this term because it is derogatory, but it's kind of like where we, you know, in Iraq or in Afghanistan, you know, American soldiers calling Afghans or the Iraqis, calling them ragheads, right? That's another. You know, it seems like it's something that's so trivial, but it's not.
No.
It's a step towards dehumanization, because, and then before you know it, killing one of them, killing a human being that you've dehumanized doesn't seem that bad.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's also enforced from the top down, no doubt, in many circumstances, especially in the U.S. military, but definitely in the IDF, as we've seen, just by, you know, looking at Smotrich and Ben-Gvir and Netanyahu's language that he uses publicly on the about the Palestinians, that gives confidence in the lower ranks of how they can talk and what their attitude is, and that's all by design, no doubt. So you've been in combat zones before, and this was a stark contrast in the attitudes towards these civilians. No doubt, like in combat zones, you see that, but this type of violence, the way that this food was distributed and the geography of it and the protocols, the SOPs were completely off from your professionalism and throughout your career, even by our standards, which our standards can be very low as well in these combat zones. So this, no doubt, had was like a baseball bat hitting you in the face when you saw this, you know. And would you say that moment with Amir was that moment, like the big smack in the face, was that moment? Besides the clues that were leading up to it.
Yes, it was. It's, you know, in all the wars that I've fought in all the places that I've been and the cultures that I've been exposed to, and the people I've met and the partners I've had in war as a Green Beret partnering with forces, safeguarding the population, safeguarding the civilians, safeguarding the innocent is the bedrock of militaries fighting in war. You take every precaution. Now, things happen, and you know that civilians in war do get killed. But it's my perception, it's my position at least, that you do everything within your power to safeguard and protect the innocent civilian population. Even to the point at times where you may even put your own unit or yourself at risk to accept risk to not harm civilians.
Yeah.
And it seemed to me in Gaza, and what I witnessed and what I was a part of, that was the opposite. That every effort was made to put civilians at risk, to put civilians in harm's way. For example, where the 3 sites in the south are built, in order for any civilian, any person to access these sites, they have to travel on foot through an active combat zone where the IDF are fighting Hamas, where there is an active fight going on. Why would you put the sites on the other side of that? It's like you could put the site there where the people are, but instead it was chosen to put the site 8 to 10 kilometers away where the people needing the food would have to walk through the fight, would have to walk through the combat. Why would you do that? It's intentional. It's deliberate. It wasn't an accident. So when I look at these sites, my first response to this is like, man, this is a horrible setup. Man, this is bad. This is not, well, it's not a horrible setup. It was an exquisitely designed, perfectly executed, well-developed concept for genocide.
Yeah. I'm going to play a video that I saw this morning. I want to play real quick. So you would see that was commonplace. What you witnessed.
That is a UG Solutions contractor, an American.
Yeah. Looks like ice. Looks like ice in our own streets. Now there was a guy, Cam Higbee, who's let's just say this: he's not a fan of Greg, and Greg's not a fan of him. And Greg pointed this out this morning when we were filming one of our Patreon videos. They're obviously have to push propaganda to the American public on conservative media, on social media, to try and do their best to, I guess, the truth, and keep the truth out of the ears of the people who might take issue with it. So they're trying to push the narrative that, they're bringing in a lot of aid, that they're feeding a lot of people, and they're doing their best to take care of the Palestinians. So this is one of the videos that he's pushing on his social media. This guy, never heard of him before. This guy.
Vegetables, just cans and cans of vegetables. You could feed so many people chickpeas. You could feed so many people with this stuff. What do we have over here? Looks like more chickpeas. Like, look at just endless amounts of food. And over that fence, there's more food, just sitting on pallets, going nowhere. We have soup here, ramen, just endless amounts of food. It just keeps going. When you think it's going to end, it keeps going. So much food.
So he's making the point that, look how much food is in Gaza right now. But what Greg pointed out is that that's on the other side of the Rafah crossing. That's on the other side of the wall. It's not in Gaza. If that was in Gaza, you would see people grabbing it because they're starving to death. But they're trying to push this counter narrative that there's plenty of food that they're bringing to the Gazan people. And it's just sitting there, and they're not distributing it. The Gazans aren't distributing it properly or something like that. So that food that you see there is no doubt brought in by trucks from the Egyptian side. And they're just sitting there. And they're making the claim that, look at the food that the Gazans already have, or the people. Look at the food that, like, the people of Palestine already have. Like, they're not doing anything with it. And so this is the counter narrative. So
a couple things I'd like to point out.
Yeah, go ahead.
If that individual was filming that within Gaza, he wouldn't have been filming it. He wouldn't have been walking around just la-di-da-di in Gaza filming that. That is on the Rafah side. That is on the other side of the border. That is not in Gaza. Now, is all that food there staged to go in? Yes. Yes, from the United Nations, of which the Israeli government will not allow the United Nations in. They've started to now, very trickle. Like, even yesterday, 250 trucks make it into Gaza. 250 trucks? The requirement to sustain life in Gaza for all the things that are needed for 2 million people is 550 trucks a day minimum. There's now a deficit because none has gone in. So for the first 30 days, let's say a month, they're going to have to be bringing in 700 to 800 trucks a day. 250 trucks is nothing. It's embarrassing. It's an insult. And for this individual that's there These people like Huckabee and Witkoff and others that say that there's no starving or there's plenty of food, I don't know how they sleep at night. I don't know how they live with themselves. I don't know how they look at themselves in the mirror and have any dignity for who they are as human beings, because there's believing a narrative that you want to believe, and then there's just flat out lying to yourself. Whoever this individual was that was there making this video that thinks that all of us are stupid, that, oh, look at this, there's all this food, that they're not trustworthy. Not only are they not trustworthy, they are puppets. They are puppets of propaganda to the other side, where they don't know what they're talking about. They go there and they make these assumptions and think that people are just going to believe it. And I'll tell everybody right now, whoever filmed that video and them saying that that's in Gaza, they're liars.
Yeah.
And if they want to give me a call and have a discussion about it, happy to do it.
But people believe it. People believe it. People are trapped in their own algorithm. People are either watching Fox News or Newsmax, or they're stuck on some algorithm on TikTok that just feeds them what Israel wants them to see, or what, you know, the powers that be want them to see. And that's it goes as a testament to how sophisticated these attempts at brainwashing the American public or propagandizing certain demographics are, with the technological advancements, you know, in social media, and how they can manipulate the algorithm, you know. And that's why people like you speaking up, and these, you know, these channels and these independent media groups we're smashing the wall of silence, you know, as best as we can. Now we're gonna expand out a little bit now that we've covered somewhat of your experience at these GFF sites. Like we probably could go into a lot into what you saw and heard and felt, but let's talk about the backlash a little bit and what you've been going through. You were kicked out of the Special Forces Association, which is an association for people who served in, you know, special operations units. You were a Green Beret, which, by the way, I wanted to be a Green Beret myself. But you've been experiencing the ostracizing. You've been excommunicated from a lot of these groups, and I talked to you about that on Monday. No doubt that was a shock to you in the conversations you had with them. But can you describe that? What happened? Describe the excommunication you've experienced so far.
I mean, for anybody that has attempted to excommunicate me or smear me, they're cowards. Because when even when this gentleman from the Special Forces Association parachute team called me, his name is Bo Kinnison. Again, here's what's odd to me. It's the Special Forces Association parachute team, and this individual, Bo Kinnison, was never Special Forces. I mean, it's like, okay, what right do you have to be on the team? But anyway, so he called me and he said, hey, we're going to have to revoke your membership on the team. You know, there's skeletons that have come out of your closet. And I'm like, what does that mean? What skeletons that have come out of my closet? Like, please tell me, because I've been a member of the SFA since 2008 and a member of the SFA parachute team since you came to me and asked me, by the way, because you needed people on the team. So what skeletons? Well, just some things that people are saying about Gaza and your views on Israel. Oh, really? What are my views on Israel? Because I'm pretty sure that my views on Israel are pretty damn fair. That I think that an ally of ours shouldn't be committing a genocide. And if you don't want to admit it's a genocide, we shouldn't be killing women and children and starving them, which the world has come to recognize. So what are my views? Well, I don't know. I don't want to get into that. I just you just can't be on the team anymore. I'm like, okay, cowards. Just
isn't that such a typical response from a coward, though? I don't want to get into that.
Yeah. It's cowards.
The
other point, like you know, this person Chase Hill. So if anybody goes to X, and I welcome you to go to X and condemn what this man posts, but at GBNT 1952, that's his handle. His name is Chase Hill. He is a former Green Beret, served 10 years in the Army. This individual, and excuse my language, this is an abhorrent, and horrible word. But this individual online referred to my wife as a cunt. My wife is a career service military veteran, served in the Army, retired, medical retiree, and also 100% totally and permanently disabled, and went to combat and served in the 82nd Airborne, and is my wife. And we've been married for 17 years. And this individual wants to say something like that on his X platform because he thinks that he's anonymous, because he has this fake handle. Well, his name's Chase Hill. And Chase Hill is the Chief Operations Officer of the Special Forces Trust, an organization, a nonprofit NGO that supports Green Berets and their families. This individual is the COO of that organization. And when I called them out on it, and I said, hey, this individual, look what he's saying, they did nothing because of me being, oh, well, your position and your stance and what you've been saying in your interviews kind of warranted that. Really?
Yeah.
So that should give everyone a mindset, kind of a mindset of how these people that are outcasting me, of how they think. So, yeah, I mean, it's a bummer, but when I look at it, I'm like, it's actually a blessing. I don't want to be a part of those organizations. I don't want to be associated with those people. They're cowards.
And the question is, how did this happen? How did it happen that these veterans groups have been so dog walked into this cowardice when it comes to standing up for what's right? And it's something that has been bugging me for a long time now, and I've been doing a lot of
because
research.
there is this fanboy fantasy that the Israel and the Israeli army are the best in the world, and they're just awesome, and that we should be like them, and that they're so great. Anybody you talk to, like that I've talked to, like, oh, the Israeli army, they're awesome. I was not impressed. I was not impressed.
I was one of those once upon a time, 20 years ago. I was one of those fanboys, and my story. I went to Palestine as a Zionist, as a pro-Israel evangelical Zionist, to pursue a possible career in the IDF. And then the Palestinians got to me. I fell in love with Palestine instead. And I was able to see the contrast between the two cultures, the Palestinian culture and the Israeli culture. And the Israeli culture, and from my impression, was psychotic. It was sociopathic, and it was very, very similar to Nazi ideology. And I was just in shock. But in particular, like you said, combined with the fanboy, the fanboydom, I guess you would call it, with the IDF, with certain U.S. veterans, is also there's a lot of lobbying that's done to these organizations. See, the heads of these organizations, they fraternize with very wealthy Zionist and pro-Israel associates who co-opt these associations because they know that in order to maintain support on the American side, there's two things you have to do. You have to infiltrate the church, the American church, and they've done that by co-opting these, church associations. The heads of these church associations, they're lobbied by very powerful and rich people in Wall Street, and who are pro-Israel and who want to push Zionist ideology within these churches. And that trickles down. That trickles down all the way from the preachers to the church members. Same thing goes for these veterans groups. They infiltrate the leaders of these veterans groups, and then that trickles down to the culture of these veterans groups. But that's all falling apart. We're seeing all of that falling apart. And but it still does not, help you digest the cowardice, the sheer cowardice at this stage in the game, when everything is out on social media, when everything's out on TikTok, and on when the video footage and the confessions of these IDF soldiers and the thousands and thousands of accounts of cruelty, of this genocide, it swept the globe. Everybody knows what's going on just about. And if you're not, you're living under a rock, or you're stuck in that algorithm bubble. So to me, I think you
want to remain ignorant because it challenges your worldview.
Yeah, which is a cowardly move. Like, if you want to be an adult, you have to adapt what you're witnessing and the reality you're facing, and then change what's going on in here. You're gonna have to clean house up in your brain and up in your mind and in your heart. And you went through that.
when you were out there. So, you've been ostracized, but you've been handling it good. I talked to you Monday, and I was very happy to hear where you are emotionally with this, because you've gone through what a lot of us have gone through in this past 2 years, where you have found that the real family that you belong to are the ones who were brave. And you and I talked about this, how the Palestinian movement has been a filter, just like the GHF sites have been the filter for the worst of the worst where they've remained. The pro-Palestine movement has been a magnet for the best of the best, and we're talking about how special forces selection process is where it's rigorous mentally, emotionally, and physically, and the goal being that it weeds out the weak of mind, the weak of heart, the weak of strength, and it leaves behind the best of the best. And that's why you join. That's why you try to get into the special forces units, because you want to serve with the best of the best. And I see a parallel there with the Palestine movement. Like, it has filtered out the worst and the weak-minded, and those who fall for propaganda, or who fall for division tactics, or who fall for intimidation. And it's left behind the best of the best, and you found that family. And in talking with you, it seems like every day you're coming to that realization more and more, that you have found a family that you want to belong to, of people who are pro-humanity. So it's good to see you go through that transition, that emotional transition. So that was a good conversation Monday, that we had, to see that you were in that spot, because I know it can be daunting, even for a Green Beret. Even for a Green Beret, it can be daunting to see backlash, but you're handling it good, so I just wanted to say that.
Well, it's been it's brought to me some, I am spiritual. I am religious, and
Same.
I don't espouse my religious views onto other people, nor do I expect people to believe what I believe, nor do I expect that, or nor do I think that what I believe is better or than what anybody else believes. We all have our beliefs. We all have our spiritual guide, our what our beliefs are. And I don't pretend in any way to think that my beliefs are better or more important, or in fact, in a lot of ways, I often try to understand other people's viewpoints and other people's beliefs, because this side of heaven, no one knows what's on the other side. So I have my beliefs, and what I believe is that when you ask God for strength, he gives you those challenges to make you strong. When you ask for strength, you don't just wake up one day and be like, I got strength now. No, you ask God for strength, and he's going to put you in positions where you can be strong. When you ask God for courage, he's going to put you in situations to be courageous. So I've asked for those things in life. I've asked for those things in my prayer, and I'll share this. I shared this with Josie, and I hope this makes will make your edit cut here. But I shared this with Josie the other day. When I was leaving Israel, I struggled. I struggled with what I saw. I struggled with what to do about it. I struggled with my loyalty to my brothers in arms, but also to the truth. I struggled. And because Tel Aviv airport was closed, I couldn't fly out of Ben Gurion airport. I had to take a train to Jerusalem. I stayed in Jerusalem for a day and a night, and then I got a driver to drive me through the West Bank to Jericho. In Jericho, I crossed the King Hussein crossing into Jordan, and I got a flight out of Amman. That's how I got out of the region. And the day that I had, that going into that first evening, I went to Jerusalem, to the old city. And because of the war between, with Iran and Israel at war, it was empty. There were no tourists. There was hardly no one there at all. It was open. You could go through and see it. There was hardly no one there. And I went to the Church of the Sepulchre, and I walked the Via Doloroso where Jesus carried the cross, and I really
I
had
walked that
this
path too.
spiritual connection to my beliefs, the foundation of my beliefs as a Catholic. And I ended it because I had to go back out through the gate to take me back into town, into Jerusalem. I went by the wall, the Western Wall. And normally the Western Wall is just hundreds and hundreds and thousands of people. It's packed.
Mhm.
And on this night, it was a calm, still night, full moon, very quiet. There was only like four or five people there. It was almost eerie. And I walked up there, so they have a cistern where you wash your hands with the copper ladle to cleanse yourself. And I washed my hands, and I'd never been there before. And I walked up to the wall, and I was kind of looking, like I felt like, am I allowed to pray at this wall? And there was this gentleman sitting in a chair with his prayers. He was a Hasidic Jew. And he spoke English, and he said to me, he said, pray on the wall. And I said, am I allowed to? Is this like okay? And he's like, this is God's wall. This isn't the Jews' wall. This isn't the Muslims' wall. This isn't the Christians' wall. This is God's wall. Pray. And so I stepped up to the wall, and I placed my hands on it, and I put my forehead against it, and I just talked to God in my head, just talking to God. And in that moment, I felt like God said, that you've seen things that you must share, and that only you can share, because very few people have seen this, and very few people have seen this through your eyes and what you've seen in your life. Spread the truth. And I just took that in for a minute. And this is in my head, by the way. This is my conversation with God. This is not out loud. And this gentleman, this man that was sitting next to me, this Hasidic Jew, places his hand on my shoulder. And he's to my left, and he places his hand on my shoulder. And I look at him, and he looks at me, and he said, you have to do what you have to do. I'd never met this man in my life. No, what was the conversation I was having in my head wasn't out loud. And he said, I can tell you're thinking of something. You're thinking on something very hard. Do what you must do. Do what God tells you. And then I walked back, and the next day I went through the West Bank and came home, and that stuck with me, that yes, there will be opposition. All good causes have opposition. I say, I like history. I like reading about history. And, in my study of history, I read about a country that was founded by people that were tired of tyranny, and they stood against it, and the world opposed them, but they stood strong, and they made a country, never backing down from their values. And they drafted a constitution and a declaration. And that declaration is founded in those values. I can't remember, I can't put my finger on it, what country that was. Oh, it was the United States of America. That's the country I'm thinking of. So opposition to good, opposition to what is right, that's organic, that's natural. So the people that want to oppose me, and they do it behind some fake name online, behind the keyboard of their internet in their grandma's basement, I don't care. In fact, it strengthens my resolve. So for those that want to hate, bring it. You're not gonna affect me. I don't care.
And your wife played a big role in encouraging you to speak out, which makes all the difference when the person that you come home to supports you.
That's right.
In these decisions. Because and like you said in our conversations, that you don't see yourself as special in any way of speaking out, because there's many people who came before you and I who have been crying out about the reality of what Palestinians are going through for decades, and we happen to have had our voices platformed in a big way where people can hear it. But there's been a lot of sacrifices that were made by people that will never know their names, like the people who have been fired, the people who have been shadow banned, the people who have been ostracized from their family members, who never had a voice, and nobody will never know their names. And they came before us. They paved the way for you, people like you and I, to speak out about our experience in Palestine and how we came to our realizations. And I always think about that I am not special in any way just because I have a podcast. I had an experience in Palestine. I came to a reality, but it was the people who didn't get a chance to speak their mind in front of big audiences that paved the way for people who did get to reach an audience. And it's sacrifice. A lot of sacrifices were made for the truth to get out about Palestine. And it's not just like people just started sharing social media posts and, oh, all of a sudden the truth came out. No, it was a lot of people who died, a lot of people who were jailed, a lot of people who were fired from their jobs. And so, you talking about how your wife encouraged you to speak up, it's a blessing that a lot of people don't have. A lot of people don't have spouses that support them. A lot of people don't have parents or kids or whatever. They don't have those people in their life. Like, they come home and they come home to a family that's supporting the genocide, who dehumanizes the Palestinians, and they have to go to their room, whether they be like a teenager who's watching the horrors happening to the Palestinians in Gaza, and their dad is cheering it on in the next room, watching Fox News or CNN, or, they're either a Democrat cheering on Joe Biden's decision to send in more bombs, more money to Israel to do this. And I always think about those people. I think about those people who don't have the luxury of coming to a home that agrees with their stance on Palestine, and that's got to be a living hell, So, for that's worth. But you also mentioned
I consider myself in the support that I have in my friends, in my family, with my wife, with my close friends, and my new family of people that I've now been welcomed into this brotherhood, and that I'm very blessed. I'm very blessed that I have a supporting spouse. I'm very blessed that I have a spouse that shared similar experiences to me in life, being in the Army, and understands values and integrity and courage. I'm very blessed. I'm very blessed that I had the opportunity that I had going into Gaza, that I could see it with my own eyes, so that I could bear testimony to what I've seen. But then, having seen it with my own eyes gives me vigor and passion for this that I don't think I would have had I not seen it and witnessed it with my own eyes. I'm very blessed for the opportunities that I have. And at times I feel, honestly, I feel guilty that people are giving an attention to my message, because so many have come before me, not just so many others. Palestinians have been saying this for years.
I know the feeling. I have people who DM me all the time about something, a video they saw, or a family member who's over there. And I but it's my voice that's, on a podcast or on Instagram. Whereas there's people who have real things to say, like, other than my dumbass up here, pushing whatever thoughts out of my head, when you got people who are witnessing horrors and they want to explain it. And I know what you mean. It's a form of survivor's guilt, I guess, and
that's a good way to describe it. Yeah.
Yeah. And you also mentioned that you and I were talking about how who knows how long from now, where this is going to be fully known, and everybody, just about everybody, except the very, very fringe people, or the people on the very fringe outskirts of society, will realize what's happening to the Palestinians and what has been happening to the Palestinians for 70 plus years. When my son grows up and he reads about this and watches documentaries about this, and he asks me, what are you doing, Dad? What was happening? I can look him in the eye and say, son, like, I was there in Palestine, and I was once a Zionist 20 years ago in 2005. And I met them, and the Palestinians were some of the most amazing people I've ever met. And they took me in as one of their own. And I eventually said yes. And I had to put away all the brainwashing that Zionism had done through the church. And it's important to me what I'm able to tell my son in the future, because I want him to grow up to be the man that he deserves to be, you know. And you told me the same thing. You told me that you want to look your children in the eye and tell them that you did something, as opposed to the men who kicked you out of these associations that you're glad you were kicked out of. You know, what will they tell their children? You know, what's the head of the Special Forces Association going to say to his son? What's he going to do? His grandkids, you know, Dad, what did you do? It's like, well, son, it was complicated. You know, is that what you're going to say? It was complicated. You know, there's two sides of every story, son. And you don't know what I saw, you know, like he's going to fall on his ass in explaining that, you know?
Yeah, I think, you know, for the viewers out there, if you've seen it or not, there's this great 10-part miniseries that HBO had years ago that I still watch regularly, but Band of Brothers. And it's episode 8 or 9. I think it's episode 8. But the war is over. Germany has surrendered, and American forces are in Europe. And it occupied Germany, but you know, forces were still pushing east. And the men of Easy Company of the 101st, they come across the first exposure to the concentration camps. And in that moment of disbelief that was hidden in plain sight, these concentration camps were there, and the world, you know, the Europeans and the Jews had been saying for a year before that it was happening, and the world didn't believe it. And then when we came across it, we were shocked. I mean, even General MacArthur said, I want pictures and documentation of everything, because one day people will try to say this didn't happen. This situation is no different. One day people will try to say this didn't happen. Heck, people are trying to say it's not happening as it's happening. And a day will come, and it is not weeks, or excuse me, it is not months or years. It is a matter of days and weeks, where the world, everyone will say they knew this was wrong. Everyone will say that it was wrong.
All the news outlets are going to be, all the news outlets are going to be reporting it as it happened and talk about the horrors, and they're going to get credit for talking about it. They're going to be, but you know, that's why we have to hold our ground. We have to, like, hey, here's the thing. Like I was telling you, this is beyond what the Palestinians are going through, beyond the fact that it's wrong, and that no human being should go through that. The other thing about what's happening, this genocide and the treatment of the Palestinians for the past, 70 years, is that it sets a domino effect of inhumanity. Because if we can dehumanize the Palestinians, which, by the way, are the most humane people I've ever met. Like I tell people this: you will never go starving or homeless if you are in the West Bank, in a Palestinian village. Especially if you're a stranger, especially if you're somebody from outside of town, they will take you in and take care of you, because it's their duty as a Palestinian. If you don't do that, then you're not a Palestinian. That's just who they are. So they're the most humane people I've ever met, because I was in Tel Aviv. I spent time with the Israelis. I've been in Israeli towns, and I was a nobody. I'm just another face. Nobody cares about who you are. It's like New York City. You're walking down New York City. Nobody cares about who you are in New York City. But when you're in a Palestinian village, they look at you as if they've seen a long lost friend that they haven't seen in years. They see you for who you are. And I felt seen when I was in these Palestinian villages. Like these old men wearing their traditional clothing, smoking hookah, probably gossiping, the town gossip. And then they look at me. And the way that they looked at me was like, I for the first time in my life, I felt seen. Like holy shit! Like I'm an individual. Like they're looking at me, and they're smiling at me. I'm like, wow, I feel like somebody.
You know, I feel like a human being. I feel like I'm a part of this world. First time ever I felt that way. And I was my first time in a foreign country alone by myself. And you think about how these people are being treated. You think about what's happening to them. Now imagine what the world can do to other groups of people, you know, like in the Congo, in Sudan, in the United States. You know, a hostile force takes out a town in Alabama. Well, it's okay. It's Alabama. A tornado takes out a town in Iowa. It's okay. It's just Iowa. See, it's this domino effect. We slowly start to see that each group is not as valuable because it's not us. And that's what people who don't, maybe they know that what's happening to the Palestinians is wrong, but they don't really care. It's like, well, you'll care if it's happening to you in your town, in your family, you know? So why wait? Why wait to care then when you can care now and help stop it, you know? And that's why I say that when the dust settles, we cannot allow the people who apologized for it and excused it and covered it up to suddenly be the good guy. We can't allow that because we're giving approval for everybody from here on out in the future to do the same thing. You can enable a massacre, you can enable a genocide, and then later on you can just say, oh my God. And that's the danger of it. So that's why I keep telling people, do not let the liberal media, the conservative media, the Democrats, and do not allow the Republicans to suddenly be the good guys a couple of years from now. Don't let it happen. Don't let it happen. Let's not get amnesia. Amnesia is a killer. Hold them accountable to the day they die, you know? And it's so important, you know? Because I tell people this is that, look, that, and you and I were talking about this, the Nazis got away. They got away with the Holocaust. They didn't get, like, a few of them got prosecuted. They had a few sacrificial lambs there, right? But most of them got away. They went to Argentina, Brazil, Chile. They got to live the rest of their lives, old, happy men with lots of children, great food. We can't let that happen. Like there is no escaping these genocidal maniacs to Argentina. Like they got to be hunted down, every single one of them. That's where I stand, because the Nazis were not held accountable. They were not. You know.
Well, I would add further that because of the information and the how connected the world is now through information and platforms, and what we know is that if we wait until after it's too late, we have no one to blame but ourselves as a world community. We can take action before it's too late.
Yeah.
We don't have to look back on this as wish we would have done it. That was sad. Let's mourn it.
Yeah.
We can take action before. It's like, having a patient that is sick and dying, and instead of treating them and trying to make them better, you're planning for their funeral. Like, let's take action now before the world community is at the funeral of the Palestinian people.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I want to talk about patriotism for a second. I want to expand out a general topic. You're a patriot, no doubt. It's very obvious to me that you're a patriot. I love patriots. That word has a negative connotation on the left because it's associated with nationalism. It's associated with these foreign wars that we should not have been fighting. But I intend to reclaim and redesignate that term patriotism, because it's been so skewed with nationalism, like with these white supremacist groups, these like these contractors, like you said, the infidels, biker gang. No doubt, if you ask them, "Are you a patriot?" they'll say yes, but they're not. Neither are the people who kicked you out of these associations. Who, they're not patriots, because where I stand, if I have to, I'll redefine the term as meaning having a very simple meaning. To be a patriot is to love the land, a love of the land that your 2 feet are planted on, and love the human being next to you on that land. The other human beings who are also on that land, you care about them. You care what happens to them. You care about the health of that land and the people who live there. You care about it. You want what's best. It doesn't matter where they're from, what color they are. It doesn't matter what language they speak. If they're a human being, they have a beating heart, and they're on that land, you love them and you care about them. That's the simple definition of patriotism in my mind. Now, as you experience this backlash, as you've seen both sides of the information war, how has your perspective on patriotism either been strengthened, altered, clarified? What would you say?
Well, the term patriots is used so much now by people that really don't understand patriotism or understand what it really means. Patriotism isn't just going along with what everybody else thinks or slapping an American flag sticker on your vehicle and then pretending that you're patriotic because of that. So the definition, patriotism has a definition, and the definition of patriotism is someone who vigorously supports their country, who is willing to stand and defend their country. There is no doubt in my mind, nor should there be in anybody else's mind, that I'm a patriot. I spent 25 years in uniform defending this country, putting my life on the line for this country. I'd say that's pretty vigorous. I am a patriot, and no different than my time before in me being a patriot. Am I any different than being a patriot now? Because I love our country and I love what our country stands for. And what I've seen and what's going on in Gaza, in Palestine, is not what our country stands for, and it's not our values. And I firmly believe that the reason that most Americans haven't stood up against it is because they don't know. So I'm here to make it known. And I truly believe that in it being known and believed that America will stand against it. I am a patriot, and patriotism, I think that this new brand of a patriot, right, is someone that calls themselves an infidel. What's a patriot? Well, you hate Muslims, you hate the rest of the world, you're always right, your religious position is correct, you're a Judeo-Christian, you're right, what you believe is correct, and by God, you're an American, and that's a patriot. And that's bullshit. Because, the founding of our country was a separation of church and state and the freedom for all people to believe what they wanted to believe and pursue their own right of happiness, the pursuit of liberty. So to think now that you're a patriot because what you believe is the truth and what everybody else believes is wrong, bullshit. This new brand of the theft of the perception of a patriot, no. People that stand for what's right, people that stand for what's right for their country against popular opinion when needed, against what the masses may think when needed, who stand up for what's right based on the values of the country they believe in, that's patriotism.
Yeah, 2005, I left the United States as a Christian nationalist when I went to Palestine. And I was, I thought I knew the definition of patriotism. I had the American, big on the American flag, the Judeo-Christian narrative of what America is, that kind of thing. And then I met Palestinians, and they completely altered my definition of what a patriot really means. Their love for their land and their willingness to sacrifice their bodies for it, and the care that they have for the health of that land, all the way from its natural harmonic cycles of in nature and agriculture, to the way that they care for the poor and for the stranger who walks on their land, to their reverence to God and their faith that God has put them there on that land, for generations. That is where I learned what true patriotism means. The key point of that is their treatment of strangers. The way that Palestinians treat people who are from out of town, to me, just stood as being like one of the most strongest iterations and aspects of patriotism. When you treat somebody who is not from around there, or who is unfamiliar, whatever you want to call it, not from your tribe, not from your village, because it's a testament to the culture of that land. And then that resonates throughout the world, all the way to here in California through myself. And I think about what the Palestinians are going through in the West Bank. And I want to play this video real quick before we wind down, that I'm sure you're familiar with this, what's happening in the West Bank. So the caption is, Israeli settler cut down this Palestinian man's olive trees that he's been working on for 20 years. They cut down 300 olive trees. Malicious settlers cut down 300 olive trees on my land. So this is very common in the West Bank. It's happening by the day, and it's getting worse. My family has a farm. I love this farm. It's been in the family for 150 years. It still has the old phone on the wall, where you crank it and you listen to it. For at least 150 years, it's been in my family. They homesteaded it, worked the land for with their blood, sweat, and tears. A lot of animals have lived and died. And that's 150 years that farm has been in the family. I grew up on that farm. I would visit it all the time. I love that farm. Love that farm. Palestinians, the land that they're losing, their farms, they've been in the family for 200 years, 300 years, 600 years, generations. A lot longer than my farm has been in our name. Before we homesteaded it, the Cherokee and the Crow were there. And so I can't imagine. I can't imagine what they're going through. The fact that their ancestors gave them that land for generations, and then just see it wiped away by psychopaths with M16s that we're providing them, And I try to tell Americans, you have no idea what patriotism really means, until you see what the Palestinians are going through. I tell a lot of people that, I always use my farm as an example. I love that farm, but I will never love that farm as much as Palestinians love their farms, because it's been passed down for, since the days of Jesus, so it's something that always strikes me. And I'm sure as you get deeper into this movement, you're seeing more and more aspects as you've been digging into what Palestinians have gone through because of your experience, But yeah, brother, I really appreciate you coming out and showing that bravery and exhibiting the true practice of the motto of the Special Forces.
Yeah, that really, it's something that sticks with me when I think about, that when, as an infantry officer in the Army, when in wanting to go Special Forces and going to selection and being a Green Beret wasn't, I didn't want to be this elite commando kicking in doors, doing, Delta Force type operations. I wanted to be to go in somewhere alone and unafraid and free the oppressed and fight for those in need and fight for those that are disenfranchised and fight for those that do not have. Send me, the old, right from the Bible, whom shall I send? So to free the oppressed, it's not something that I just don't do anymore. It's part of who I am. And the people and the Palestinians are being oppressed, and they're not only being oppressed with starvation and dehumanization and military action. They're being oppressed by a powerful force in the world that refuses to recognize. And we're going to break that. We are going to break through that force, but it's
Yeah.
going to take all of us. But I think
Yeah.
that the like I said, a day of reckoning is coming where everybody will say this was wrong, and there's going to be those that stood for right, there's going to be those that did nothing, and there's going to be those that stood for wrong. And there's nowhere to run and there's nowhere to hide.
The oppresso libere, right? That's how you say it. The
De oppresso libere. Yep.
Yeah. Well, I hope to have you on more on this platform, so
love
we
to.
can go beyond just your accounts, but also helping the American people, give them the tools they need to be the to liberate the oppressed. Because, like you said, it's going to take all of us, and that's because Palestine has ripped off the mask of the beast. It's ripped the mask off the beast. Like it has exposed. Palestine has exposed our institutions for the corrupt dens of thieves that they are. And had Palestine not done that, we probably would have continued on with this illusion that these institutions work for us, but they're corrupted. Like I tell people this, like what's happening in Gaza, it's very simple what the agenda is. It's because the wealthiest corporations on this planet want that real estate. So all the debates on, religion, culture, like the debates on history, the debates, the nuances, all that, it doesn't really matter in the end, because the mission has always been clear from the beginning. Big corporations want that real estate, and there's people who are living on that real estate. So they're wiping them out, and they're giving all kinds of excuses to do it, and it's all falling apart. And it's revealing to the rest of us that the same people behind the oppression of the Palestinians are the same people behind the oppression of Americans here. The reason why we can't afford a home is because it's the same reason why they're trying to ethnically cleanse the West Bank and Gaza. It's the same root cause. And we're realizing that we all share the same enemy, and it's affecting us here at home. So I think it's a matter of connecting that to the average American. And I think that's when they can feel more motivated to join the fight, hopefully, So, but
I mean, the other thing for most Americans, that what a lot of Americans, mom and pop back home, John and Jane Doe, what they need to all realize is that if we continue down this road of being led into things by Israel, soon we will have American boots on the ground fighting Israel's wars, and it will be, and we'll be sending home Americans in body bags and flag draped coffins. We should put America first, and part of that is recognizing that we, and I don't mean America first in an isolationist sense. I don't say America only, but if we say America first, putting Israel's desires ahead of ours and sacrificing our freedom and our future for that's not America first.
Yeah. No, it's not. And I think we just have to figure out a way to hone in that message, because right now, what we're dealing with here stateside, everything that's happening in Gaza is going to come home to roost with us, and it's already happening. We're going to see our illusion of freedoms being torn down, which we're seeing right now, and how we handle it is going to be pivotal. And that's why I've talked to you about how possibly we can help Americans and help our audience get prepared to how they can secure their communities and create a strong network of sovereignty across the United States, so that we could be prepared for anything that comes our way and fight what's happening to us here. So we'll talk about that more sometime, but
yeah,
I know it's good. I know you've been on here for a while. I won't keep you too much longer, but brother, thank you for coming on. It's been great meeting you and getting to know you over this past couple of weeks, and welcome to the family.
welcome to the family of Revolution for Humanity.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I'll end this here, family. Let's always show support for people like Tony, who are coming out and breaking the mold, breaking the narrative, and smashing a lot of concrete walls that have been built around Americans who don't know what's going on. As I've always said, the only way we're really going to circumvent the shadow bans, the algorithmic, quarantining that we've all been experiencing is to get out and talk to your neighbors, physically talk to your neighbors, not just posting stuff, not just doing social media outreach, but physically talking to average people who are in your life, whether it be at the grocery store, cafe, wherever. Talk to them. And there's nothing that the government or Israel or any corporation can do to censor that yet. So, so I'll end it on that note. As always, love you, fam.